Welcome to FinFactor. I'm your host, Blaine Bertsch, co-founder and CEO at Dry Run Cash Flow Forecasting Software, where we help the office of the CFO leave spreadsheets behind, delivering clear and accurate forecasts to the management team. And joining me today is Greg Kautz of Black Owl Systems. They offer comprehensive lease accounting software designed to assist businesses in efficiently managing and complying with lease accounting standards and cater to both lessees and lessors. Today, we'll explore the challenges finance teams face when dealing with a large number of leases. Thanks for joining me, Greg.
Well, you're welcome, Blaine. Glad to be on your show.
So I know we've known each other for a while here. We've talked back and forth about our businesses numerous times. And of course, I know you do lease accounting, and I know it's connected to different standards. And then it's a loss. So tell me a little bit about like the problem you guys I know tackle are connected directly to these standards or lease accounting standards that have come in. Tell me a little bit about that base problem and where this all sort of started for you.
Well, it all started in 2019 when the stock regulators changed the way you reported leases. They moved it off your income statement as an operating lease, and they made most leases now capital leases. And so you're putting a lease on the balance sheet. So before it was sort of a debit and credit entry on your income statement, and now you've got to create an asset, a liability, and then if it's a finance lease, you've got to do interest and depreciation calculations. So all that complexity, what it is your core accounting systems, whether it's SAP or QuickBooks or Sage or Oracle, cannot do that natively, that calculation. So the market creating subsystems, sub-ledgers to that. And that's what created the market. And then as people started using the systems on the market, they just found weaknesses and inherent flaws in what the solutions were, still requiring a lot of manual intervention from the accountants and the finance teams, trying to come up with those entries in a timely fashion.
So I know that because we've talked about this before, there's a lot of places that are still in spreadsheets, if I'm not mistaken.
I would say 70% of the people who reach out to us are on spreadsheets. The others have another solution and they're looking to get away, but there's still so many spreadsheets out there. And the inherent problem with that is a lot of them, the people using them, they didn't create the spreadsheet. So they borrowed it from somebody. And so you know what happens when you borrow a spreadsheet. And again, the standards are very complex, and it isn't, you can create your original lease amortization schedule and get your basic initial entries, but it's when you start getting reassessments, modifications, changes to that lease, that's where the spreadsheets start blowing up. Or if there's initial direct costs, if there's deposits, again, that's where the spreadsheets blow up. And, reading the standard once isn't going to give you all the answers how to build that spreadsheet. You've got to be familiar with the accounting standards. You've got to have that expert level to understand it. And that's where your problems get to with all those spreadsheets still happening.
Yeah. And I know because of course we deal with CFOs buried in spreadsheets all the time too. And there's this balancing act, right? Because a spreadsheet, you can kind of do anything. And so that's what's really appealing is like, okay, we can do it. I can figure it out. I can build something. I have control over it. But like you said, then it starts to break down because now you have multiple people involved. You're moving it around. And then like you said, there's these exceptions. The problem is the exceptions happen all the time in probably every location, right?
Well, and the thing with these spreadsheets, as leases terminate, as leases, you get new ones, you're adding new tabs. So again, you've got a formula. It's all going to that summary page. And we're getting companies with, thousands of leases still in spreadsheets coming to us, and even as small as under 10. We had one accounting firm that says, I'm never doing another spreadsheet again. And, he had a client with 10 leases and he says, I'm getting off this thing.
Well, and like when you think about it, it's like only 10 and you're thinking, yeah, that's still a lot of room for error. Yes. Broken everything, right?
Well, and it isn't just the error with the spreadsheets. It's, did they interpret the standards correctly? Are they capturing everything, all the nuances where a system gives that robust functionality? It isn't just doing those core calculations.
So, and I imagine there's, when you start to get into businesses, like you said, with maybe thousands of leases, I'm assuming there's probably more people that are involved in that job of seeing, understanding, entering data, confirming things, submitting things. Like how does it work with a team when they're still in spreadsheets and they're trying to tackle a large number of leases?
It sort of varies because some organizations, and I won't drive it by the number of leases. You've got your smaller businesses where you've got bookkeepers, accountants doing all the transactions. So, one person could be assigned to that spreadsheet. Where you get into more mid-sized companies, larger, you may have a team touching lease accounting. So there could be somebody in their existing system, or there could be a person managing one spreadsheet, or if you have multiple divisions within that, there's multiple different spreadsheets, then all going to financial reporting for that final consolidation. So it's quite different. Every organization we talk to, it's quite different, but the fewer number of leases could be a large department or a large company, or you could have a small company with lots of leases, and it's killing somebody with trying to manage those spreadsheets.
Yeah, I can see how much pain those tend to bring. One of the other things that I think you mentioned it on early on, was where do you get that single source of truth as far as data goes? Like, so you mentioned the ERPs tend to not have the ability to manage this, but I imagine they have some of the information that is really useful, and getting that information out into a spreadsheet, I'm guessing, is a little bit of a pain, eh?
Well, what the ERPs have is the master data, what we need. We need the vendors, we need the coding block that they need for booking it back into the accounting system. So that's what we get from the ERP. But the lease information could be anywhere. It could be in Google Sheets. It could be in a CRM or a contract management system. The lease information can be in various sources. It could be in multiple spreadsheets. It could be in the operations side, and now you're trying to get that information over to accounting. So we see it everywhere, and it could still be in the original lease document. And yeah,
that's it's like it's funny. Like it's the same sort of thing, different set of data. But as we talk with people, as CFOs, and it's amazing sometimes how they'll start to describe where the data is in their organization, how they pull it all together, and it's truly a challenge. And it's funny that ERPs were supposed to solve this, and I think they've gone to a partial way to help solve some of this problem of data and keeping everything with a kind of like I said, that single source of truth. But it's never quite lives up, I think, sometimes to what they promise.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right, because ERPs have that core functionality. They're good at managing cross-functional transactions between supply chain and accounting, or sales and accounting. It's a hub, but then there's some applications where companies still look for that best of breed. Like in your space, it's planning and forecasting. They're saying it could do it basically, but I need something advanced. You see it in consolidations for financial reporting. You have to bring that extra level of analysis to that tools. And that's where another one is in the invoicing and payables, where the ERP can do it well, but the interaction with the vendor, they need that more sophistication, so they go to an add-on, and that's where lease accounting fits in as well. We are an add-on to that core ERP. We leverage what's in there, we make it better, and we make it easier for the users to get a complete solution rather than a partial solution.
So give me a bit of an idea. Like you mentioned, it's not necessarily the number of leases. Sometimes it's just the complications and where the data is and everything else. But it's fine. Like if you're the CFO, you're not probably doing this, right? I imagine you have a staff accountant or somebody that's actually doing the actual job. And they might not be saying anything. They might be like, well, I can grind through it. I don't see an alternative. What is the benefit if you're talking with a CFO, or even directly with, you're doing this lease accounting documentation? What are some of the benefits of getting into a modern pro system?
Well, number one is accuracy, because spreadsheets can give you errors. And then you start passing it around. When it goes to the auditors have to interpret, because every year you could have a different auditor looking at it. So again, you get your accuracy. And then, the biggest benefit is the efficiency, because lease accounting is you don't want your accountants grinding on spreadsheets, trying to come up with journal entries. You want to push of a button. So it's that efficiency you get. Now, I don't like to say, well, you're going to get a cost saving, you reduce accountants, because you still need those accounts. You can just redeploy them in something more value added. If you can reduce your time by 50 to 80% gathering those transactions, you've got more time to do more analysis of that lease information and more analysis and other value added things in the finance process.
Yeah, and I can I've never worked in that department, but boy, I can feel it. Like we're coming on the last couple of months here. It's amazing the number of people I've talked with that have just come out of year end. Come out of year end, and you can just feel it, and it's like they're getting everything together, and there's almost it feels like not a mad rush, but there's so much going on, and that's where errors come in. Like you said, kind of want to be able to sit down and look at it and look at the information and go, well, what can this tell us about our business and help us improve our business, rather than we got it just in time, right for the deadline.
And with the accounting teams, they just finished year end, but then they still had to do January and February accounting. And now they're coming up in April is going to be the first quarter end. So, the cycle is there every year, 4 times a year is those big quarterly cycles. In between is the monthly reporting. So, accountants don't have much time in between to look for new solutions, and so we see waves when people reach out to us when they want to talk. Our sales process, we may make a contact and then they say, we'll talk to you in a month. We got our day job to do. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a challenge for them, because it's like, I got to do this now and I can't do a new system right now. But boy, I could see how the quarter after in the next year could be so much easier and clean. And like you said, it's like you're taking away the groundwork. You're not replacing people. You're taking away the stuff that you don't need a finance pro with all of their training and the things that they could offer to your business, just trying to gather and clean up data and dump it all into a spreadsheet. That's not a good use of their time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to dive in a little bit on, now we've kind of we know this is sort of the problem. This is where businesses are buried into spreadsheets. I want to dive in a little bit what you guys saw in the market and where that need is, and how you guys are starting to fill that gap.
What we're seeing in the market is, there's still a lot of companies on spreadsheets. So what we see at this time of year is they've just got through their audit. Their auditors have been grinding them on their calculations, or it's been a back and forth, and they're saying it's time to get a new solution. So we're seeing that, but then also we're seeing companies saying it's time for a new solution. So they already have an existing lease accounting solution, and they're starting to, what we call this is we're in the day 2 now. So it's doing reassessments, modifications, new leases, more complexities. And they're just realizing, geez, the solution we picked 4 years ago isn't meeting our needs. So we're getting people coming back saying it's time to look for something different, something that's more complete. And, there's functionality where, we stand out is how we do our lease change, which is reassessments, modifications, entities that have multi-currency working in other countries. We're very strong in that. So we have people coming to that. And then the other is on the lessor accounting. We're getting a lot of inquiries. We're one of the few lease accounting solutions that has lessor. And so people are just saying, we've been doing lease accounting for lessee in a system. Lessor, oh, you can do both. So we're getting people saying, well, here's a huge efficiency, because we were doing the lessor in spreadsheets still and the lessee in a system.
Yeah. And I imagine one of the big benefits of getting into a system like this is, even though there's a lot of complexity there, there's also a standardization, which means it's easier to train. And so I'm even thinking you have lessee, lessor, and it's but you can train there's some consistency, some standardization that helps pull us all together, right?
Yeah, and it all goes back to any system, just like yours. We use your system. It's on the user interface and how easy it is to, some systems are very complicated. You need a lot of user training. Some are so intuitive, it's just logical. And so, that reduces your training curve. And then when you have employees changing, you don't need, the vendor coming back and retraining. They can train themselves.
Yeah, I have yet to have someone come to me and say, your system's too easy. I want something more complicated. They may want more, they want control. They want that sophistication they need. They still want it easy. Still don't understand what they're looking at, what they're using. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about if someone is in a situation where they're like, yeah, this is a problem that's been a problem with us for a while here. I think we need to look at a new system. Like who should come talk with you? Who do you tend to talk with the most? And how can they sort of, I guess, ascertain that, yeah, like it's time for us to move into something else?
Well, it comes from various outreaches. So sometimes it could be the CFO who recognizes there's inefficiencies or accuracies and says, they recognize it. But then it could be from that line accountant or the manager saying, we've lived with this pain long enough. We need to raise it. So it can come from, the senior person in the organization to the junior person. We have both reaching out to us, and then it's how do we do the market messaging and how do we help build that business case for them to justify the cost and the ROI?
It always comes down to that in the end. But you're solving a bona fide problem. That's why people are coming to you. How should people find you if they want to talk with you? They want to learn about your system.
Well, a couple of ways. You could go on to our website, which is blackowlsystems.com, and just click one of the links, and it'll go to a sales email, and that way it'll get to us. Or the other is find me on LinkedIn and shoot me a LinkedIn message. Love to connect to people to expand my network, expand the messaging that we're trying to save the complexities. Or you can send me a direct email at Greg Kautz at blackowlsystems.com.
Thanks so much, Greg, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the insight on lease accounting and encourage anyone who just wants some information, go contact Greg and connect with them on LinkedIn and visit their website. And as well, I want to mention to you guys, if you're a CFO or you're part of a finance team and you guys are still doing cash flow in the spreadsheet, come and talk with us at dryrun.com. We're going to bring you a tool that's going to give clarity and control to the management team. Thanks so much.